Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go through the process of setting up a site. Now, a website is really just a folder with files in it. HTML files and other supporting files such as style sheets, images, script files, whatever. So really, usually you start out by building your site as a folder on your own local computer. And then at some point when you're ready, you publish that folder to a web server. And so we're going to go ahead and create a folder for our first site here on our computer. So I'm going to go ahead and create a folder. I'll name it My First Website. And this will be the root folder of my site. And so every site has a root folder, and that really is the main folder that contains it. And then within that root folder, usually there's a file called index.html, which is essentially the home page, or the main file that everything branches out from. And then there might be other folders, including an images folder, and perhaps a styles folder. But you'll notice that as I'm naming these folders that I'm keeping everything lowercase in my naming convention. I'm not leaving any spaces, because when we're dealing with the internet, we're dealing with addresses, web addresses that don't have spaces and that might be case sensitive. And so it's easiest just to avoid spaces and capitals and odd characters in the things that we name our files. So as you go ahead and work on your site, just make a note of saving yourself some hassle and using simple file names. Okay, so let's go ahead and create our index.html file. So I'm using Text Wrangler here as my text editor on my Mac, and I'm going to just do a save as, and I'm going to save this particular HTML file onto my computer in my root folder. So I'm just going to call it index.html. So I'm saving it in the root folder of my website. Remember that one that I created that I called My First Website. So here we go. I'll save that. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and create the just the header elements for the website. So I'm going to start out and do our doc type definition. So this is an important part that needs to be included. This tells the browser what kind of a file this is. And so that's all it is, just doc type HTML. Used to be a lot more complex than that, but HTML5 cleans it up quite a bit. I'm going to go ahead and create the HTML tag, the opening tag, and the closing tag. And then I'm also going to put in the language attribute, just to say that this is coded in English. So HTML is the top level element for an HTML page. Everything's enclosed within that. Okay, now I'm going to create the head element, and this contains information about for the browser that isn't necessarily displayed. So this includes information about the character set, about the title of the page, about and then about any other files that are linked to this file, like style sheets, external style sheets, or scripts. But we'll worry about that later. For now, we'll just give it a title. And you'll see in a moment when we look at this in a browser what the title does. But the title appears up at the top of the browser, up in the title bar. Okay, and then we'll also put in a meta tag. Meta tag is just a tag that contains information about the page, and so we're going to use one that describes the character set, which in this case is UTF-8. Now we're not really going to worry about the whys of that, but just go ahead and take my word for it there. We'll just set that up. Okay, and then once we have that all set up, there's our head tag with some information in there. Now I'm going to go ahead and put in our body tag. And the body tag contains within the opening and closing body tag, all of the information, really the bulk of what happens on the web page, the information that is displayed in the body of the page for the browser. So really, if you want to, you can go ahead and set this up somewhere, save it as just kind of a starter file that you can reopen and resave as a different name whenever you need to create a web page, or copy and paste into a new text document whenever you need to create an HTML file. So because this information generally stays the same, and you might throw in additional information here, like a link, attribute that will link to a style sheet, or you might include a script attribute, but we'll worry about those later. At least for now, this is a good starting point. Okay, so we need to add something here to the body of this page and show you in the process a little bit about how HTML works and how the browser actually goes and displays it. So I'm going to create a heading tag. So an H1 tag is our top level heading. It's the biggest heading that we've got. And I'm just going to give it some text there, my first website. Okay, then I'll go down and I'll create a paragraph, and I'll start to type some text into that paragraph. So this is the first paragraph of my first website. I am demonstrating how the browser reads HTML from a text file. Okay, now I'm just going to go ahead and create a new paragraph element. Now this isn't necessarily good practice, but I'm doing it for demonstration's sake. I'm going to create a new paragraph element on the same line as I just ended the last one. So new paragraph. This is a new paragraph. I am starting it on the same line in my, in my HTML text file. However, in the browser, it should still appear as a new paragraph. Because in the browser, it's going to treat this as another block level element. So it's going to essentially treat this as if it was starting on a new line. Now, if we were wanting to keep track of our code and go in and make it editable later on, we'd want to start it on a new line. But just for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and start it here. Now, let's do something else interesting here. So I'm going to start a new paragraph. This is a third paragraph demonstrating how HTML handles line breaks in the HTML document. Also, I will demonstrate how extra spaces are handled. Okay, so let's just go ahead and save this. And then I'm going to go and open it. So here's my index.html file. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to open it on my computer. Okay, now let's just take a look at what we're seeing here. And this will show you a little bit about how the browser reads HTML. So here we see there's the title, my first website. And you can see up at the top in the tab it's called My First Website, so up in the title bar. Okay, now down here in my heading 1 tag it says My First Website. Again, but this time I've got lowercase and lowercase here, so you can see that it's pulling from that H1 tag. Okay, now here's the first paragraph. And it includes all of the text between this opening paragraph tag and this closing paragraph tag. Then we have another opening paragraph tag, and the browser reads that as a new paragraph that it's going to start on a new line, displays a new block. Okay, so you see here that it's not really paying attention to line breaks in the HTML file. It's paying attention to the tags instead. And you see that especially as we get further down here. So here on this third paragraph, the browser is completely ignoring all these line breaks. It's not paying any attention to them, because what browsers do when they look at an HTML file is they treat all line breaks and extra spaces as one space. And so here I have this third paragraph demonstrates how HTML handles line breaks, and you see the browser has just interpreted all those breaks as one space when it displays it for the web. Now we also look down here, we see there's more line breaks that are being ignored, and then here at the end of the sentence I had all of these spaces in the file, but again HTML, the browser is interpreting that as just one space. Just keep in mind that what you see in the code is not necessarily what you're going to see in the browser, and that what you need to get in the habit of doing is thinking in terms of what the elements are actually telling the browser to do. And it can be helpful to make sure that you keep things as simple as you can in your HTML file, as structured as you can, so that it's easy to kind of understand what's going to be happening on the page. So in this case, we could have a big block of strung together paragraph tags, and the browser would read them as separate paragraphs, but for our own sake it's useful for us to separate these out so that we know what's happening on the page a little bit easier, and it's easier to find what it is we need to edit.